KFIZ News Time. It is 8:10, and welcome to Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. I am Matt Hinker, and joining me today is Ron Rademann and Master Gardener Delores. The phone lines are open for your questions, so please shout out to us at 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. If you can't give us a call, shoot us an email at kfizstudio@gmail.com. Ron, Delores, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes. How are you doing in this, what's going to be probably a hot, steamy day and weekend here coming up?
Well, you just have to work outside early.
Yes, correct. Get out sooner before the heat of the day really kicks in. Ron, I assume Rademann's is open today?
Yes, Rademann's is open today, open until noon today, and every Saturday, I guess, here. And Monday through Friday till 4:30.
Excellent.
So, yeah, it's going to be this is going to be like one of the hottest weeks of the whole summer here, coming up by the sounds of things, the looks of things, and so and it's been dry, the last 6-7 weeks, ever since we got past the 4th of July week, it's been dry. Yeah. So, if you've done any, and we've had the timely rains, which has kind of kept the lawns green. So it's a little bit of a false sense of security out there. So if you've done any planting or transplanting, especially of larger trees and shrubs, they definitely need water. And it's because the top 2, 3, 4 inches, there's moisture there. But as we're transplanting and moving trees here now at this time of year, once we get down 6 inches or so, 8 inches, some areas, there's very little moisture. And of course, on larger trees, medium-sized trees, shrubs, that's kind of right where the root systems start. So definitely time to water. When you water, make sure you're getting a good soaking, not just the top. Like we said, the top couple inches are already wet. You got to soak deep, water slowly, water back to back, water at night, water again the following morning. That kind of emulates a full day, evening, night's rainfall that way. So that's what, the trees and larger plants need to help them through this, and it's not going to get any better for the next couple weeks. So so do it now. Don't think, well, I'll just wait because it might rain next week. Well, it might, but you can't really count on it.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't rely on it. It looks, because it doesn't look like we have any major systems moving through. It's just going to be kind of hot and humid. So
we might get a pop-up thunderstorm.
Exactly. What they like to call a convective thunderstorm, usually common, say, down in Florida, where you have enough heat and humidity. Where here you need a lifting mechanism like a front. So yeah, we probably, like you said, don't rely on it.
Well, and if you do get one of those, again, it kind of helps really out the perennials a little bit and helps out your vegetable garden a little bit, but it doesn't really do much for the long-term health. And especially like your evergreens, they need to be in good health going into winter. You can't just, think they're going to be fine, because that's when we get the calls in April and May and say, what happened? How come
and you can't help them at that point.
No, the damage was done. So
then let me piggyback off that then, because I do have some evergreens and they're doing great. I really haven't watered them much or anything. They're doing fine. But so when you talk about that now, are you talking about if you've moved them, or is this also established ones that have been there for now? These have been there for a few years, a couple of years.
Well, pretty much any older plant can benefit by a watering, and even like the trees in my yard that have been there now 25, 30, 35 years coming up here now. And, I'll still water them once in June, once in July, once in August. Now, this year I didn't water them once in June. It wasn't necessary.
Mother Nature took care of that.
And quite frankly, I skipped the once in July too, because there was still plenty of moisture there yet in early July. But then as I got, we got into October, then I did water them, and it's just to keep them in good health. It's not that they necessarily needed it. It's kind of like taking your vitamins. You're at home. You're fine. You feel fine. You'll do fine. But you can just always improve on things just a little bit better. So that's kind of the theory. So if you haven't watered, then go ahead and water.
Okay.
But it's especially important to newer plantings, plants, trees that you've planted in the last couple years. But it doesn't. Are they going to die? Probably not. But you don't really know what's coming up either. If we have a harsh winter, and they're a little stressed going into winter, then you run the risk of them dehydrating, and so you want to keep them in good health going into winter.
All right.
So,
well, that's my plan today, was do some watering. I wasn't sure if I should hit those or not, but I will. So,
well, and there isn't a lot of other things. It's kind of too early to be fertilizing. It's too late to be spraying fungicides for the most part. Any insecticides. Those, if they do a little nibbling on your leaves right now at this time of year, there isn't really too much to worry about. It's kind of that time of the year anyway. So, put your energy to where it should be, and you shouldn't really be trimming anymore at this time of year. So, don't do all the hard things to do, the difficult things. Don't do the difficult things, do the easy things like water, because that's the most beneficial thing you can do right now. So,
Delores, I'm going to ask you a question. Then, what would your recommendation then? We kind of covered more, say, trees, lawns, but what about vegetable gardens and stuff like that? What is your recommendation here going into what we're going to have a bit of a hot, like Ron has said, we haven't had much rain lately, and looks like we don't really have much coming on the way.
Right. Vegetables are just annuals, so you really want to water them.
Gotcha. That's what I figured. That's what I've been doing. I watered mine, I think it was not yesterday, it was 2 days ago.
They recommend you water in the morning, but when it's this hot, you might want to water at night and in the morning, just to give your plants plenty of moisture. This is heat that we usually get in August, but the plants are going to be stressed.
Yep. Yeah, and for the most part, all my vegetables, except I have one pepper plant, the leaves are getting they look a light greenish, so I'm wondering if it isn't a little dehydrated. The rest of them, it's like just a beautiful, rich, green, leafy. And I don't know if you've been on since, I was concerned about my tomato plant. The concerns are, it's since then it is absolutely
gone crazy.
Yes, and I'm already spotting several tomatoes, and you can see where there's going to be a whole heck of a lot more on the way. So she is thriving.
It's a girl, huh?
Yes, I just assume I always need to, because car, boat, anything like that. So it's just natural for me.
Oh, that's very cute.
But all right, so water then. So would you maybe? I was going to water this morning. Would you maybe then recommend watering tonight and then into tomorrow morning?
Well, is it going to be cool tonight yet?
I think it was going to be a little cooler tonight. Saturday tonight, 66. So
yeah, they probably wouldn't need water tonight.
Gotcha.
But morning watering is better.
Okay. Yeah, and that's when I usually do it. I'll sometimes even take a little break from work. Okay, whatever's going at work is driving me nuts. So I'm gonna take 5 minutes and get some water on some things.
A lot of people are taking advantage of the perennial sales right now. And what you really have to do is check those plants well to make sure they're not root bound. And if they are, trim those roots back. A lot of times they're spiraled around in the pot, and you want to cut them a little bit and trim them and water.
Gotcha.
And not fertilizer.
Not fertilizer?
No.
Why is that?
Because you don't want them to do a lot of top growth this time of year.
Okay, all right. That makes sense. Ron's mentioned that a lot, so yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that'll encourage top growth when you want root growth, right?
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you're planting them at this time of year, it's actually a and we talk about the water, and then we go out and a minute later say how it's such a good time to plant, but it really is, because if you plant at this time of year, the tops, they're not growing. The tops, there's no new vegetative growth off the top, but the roots will still root in and grow yet. So even like at the nursery right now, we're actually planting a lot of evergreens and transplanting and repotting as many the pines, the spruce, the fir, the arborvitaes, things like that, because you don't have to worry so much. You're not moving them, disturbing them when they're trying to put new top growth on. So it's a great time to transplant, especially evergreens right now, plant or transplant. And, and if you are transplanting them, you're going to have to water them a little bit here this week, or by the time you get organized, the hot week will be over and we'll be into September, and it'll be a real good time again. And at the same time, transplanting evergreens, it works. Everybody thinks, well, we'll wait until October or November when it's cooler, but transplanting evergreens works best during this late August, early September period, because they are finished growing and they'll root in and be prepared for winter better that way. If you transplant evergreens, and they're all just a little bit different, blue spruce and Black Hill spruce,
right.
You can cheat on those and do those into October usually, but arborvitaes and a lot of these other ones, it's better to get them planted here right now, sooner rather than later. And excuse me. And then also, the same thing goes with, getting grass planted. Right now, you'll see a lot of the contractors out doing lawn work, and you can work it up, seed it right now, and just even let it sit for a week or two without watering, and it'll just kind of lay there dormant for a week. Then when it rains on it, then start in with the watering, because if you get it done right now, do your lawn work, do your reseeding, and get that seed started. Especially if you're going to wait a week before you start the growing process with irrigating and things like that. Now you're into the first part of September. Bluegrass takes 3 weeks to germinate, so it's the last week of September actually before you're getting the grass that you want. The annual rye and some of these others that germinate quicker but aren't the desirable grasses like bluegrass, they kind of get you started, hold things in place until the bluegrass germinates, grows, and kicks in. But, so now it's, if it's not germinating till the last week of September, you're mowing it maybe in the bluegrass, at least you're not mowing it until October, and you want to mow it a couple times. So, don't wait another couple weeks. Get it done. Get your shredded black dirt laid out right now. Get your seed down, fertilize it, put straw mulch on it, or something like that to hold things in place. And then if you just even want to let it go for a week through this hot weather before you start, actually, if it once it rains though, then you got to start. Then you got to keep it up.
Then you got to keep on it.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to seed it and start watering right away when we've got the 90-degree week. Get the work done and then wait it out.
Yep.
So,
All right, I tell you what, we will step aside and take our first break. Don't go anywhere as you are listening to Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company.
Yeah, Rademann's open today, Saturday, till 4:30, till 12 o'clock today, Monday through Friday till 4:30. And we're just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac, and you can just exit off at County B as in boy, head to the east. We're right down the road a quarter mile.
And welcome back to Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. I'm Matt Hinker and joined by Ron Rademann and Master Gardener Delores. Phone lines are open for any and all your landscaping and gardening questions, so shoot us a call at 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. You can't shoot us a call? Well, fire over an email at kfizstudio@gmail.com. So I do have a question for both of you, maybe more for Delores, but by all means, both of you. So one thing that to piggyback kind of what you were talking about earlier, I definitely have been seeding the last few years at around this time. It's been incredibly effective. It's definitely one of the ways I've essentially pushed most weeds out of my yard is just by having grass be the dominant species. But the thing that with seeding, you got your seeder and it's spreading the seed. And now, I've got grass springing up in some areas, like in my hostas, for example, in the rocks, or by my oak tree where I also have some hostas, carabels, and a few other plants. I'm an impatient man. And I know I can go in there and just start trying to, but because you got this little bits of grass, and I don't like how it looks, obviously, right? It just doesn't look nice, and that bothers me. What is a recommended way of, at least the most quickest, efficient way possible to get rid of that?
I really cheat. I put down cardboard and then put mulch on top of it.
Oh, okay.
And it smothers the weeds, and the cardboard just disappears over time. Or thick newspaper, several layers of newspaper.
Oh, okay. If you can find those anymore these days.
Right.
But
that does work well especially in perennial beds and things like that, where you don't want to put landscape fabric down, and it works well because it suppresses the weeds.
And it just deteriorates.
Weeds and grass need light, and if you cover them, it smothers them. And there's to your point, there's a lot more cardboard or corrugated board, I guess, as the
Correct.
Professionals call it. It's corrugated board. There's a lot of that available, more so than newspaper these days. But that works just as well. And like Delores says, you put that down, and a year later, it's pretty well, gone. It's turned back into, it's biodegraded right back into the soil. And
some of them will have a wax coating, and like the tape that's on it, you want to take that off.
That makes sense, yeah.
So you just have to be a little subjective in choosing your cardboard or corrugated board. But it trims out real easy with a knife or a utility, utility knife or scissors. And it doesn't help you with quack. It just creeps right out from under it. Yeah,
luckily that's not a problem for me. It hasn't been for a bit, so that's not the issue. It's just for me. It's definitely the grass seed that I'm seeding.
Right, and you just sprinkle it. Wind takes a little bit of it. Sure.
Yep. Sure. So and you notice it too, because it's definitely not happening. Like I have one plant bed of perennials. And behind my house, it's just hostas, but, I don't have the lawn there or anything. It's just in my gravel driveway and all that. So obviously none of it's there, right? Because I'm not seeding any grass there.
Right.
So I know that's what it's from. So, okay, good to know. That is exactly what I was hoping for. That sounds much easier than going in, sitting there and plucking out individual clumps of grass.
When the grass is that young, it's really not that well established yet, right?
Yeah, you can try pulling it. A lot of times it works best to kind of wait it out right now. Into early September, you could spot spray it real well with a glyphosate product. Just make sure it's and if you have weedy grass, use cleanup. If you have weedy weeds, broadleaf weeds, then you want to use a weed killer. And like Roundup or clean up those with glyphosate. They say they'll kill weeds, but they don't really do a good job. Yeah. They'll slow them down, they'll suppress them, but they don't really kill them. Yeah. They'll kind of damage them, so to speak. You really need a a weed killer to kill weeds and a grass killer to kill grass. So kind of identify your problem. And of course, if you're in perennial beds, if you do have coral bells or
that's what I have,
or daylilies, hostas, anything like that, you want to be super careful. Now the cleanup it'll bother them. It might damage them slightly. It won't kill them.
Mm-hmm.
So, just spot spray it carefully. And a good time of year we've really found the best time to spot spray those weedy grasses is early September. And it's kind of, the days are getting shorter. The grasses, we start getting a little more moisture, rain in September than what we typically get in August. And you'll get a better kill on the weeds and on the grass if you're attacking them more so in September than right now in August when it's real.
Their sugars are going down for the winter to secure the roots, so you send down the poison instead.
And that's where your step 3 comes in real well if you're doing that in September. So now's the time to go pick it up, get it in your garage, get ready to roll. And that way, when this heat passes in the next 10 days, couple weeks, then you can go out and put your step 3 down. And don't put your winterizer down this early or you'll regret it.
Yep.
And you'll be out there mowing twice a week if you try to cheat on the winterizer. It'll start things up and you'll be really...
Don't put the mower away.
No, don't put the mower away. As a matter of fact, you can keep it right outside because you'll be mowing if it starts. We start getting regular moisture, and you put your winterizer down early.
Mm-hmm.
So wait until end of October to put your winterizer down. November, that way you're helping your grass over the winter months, not getting it growing or pushing it out in your ending up doing a lot of mowing in mid October already. So
I mean the weather's usually nice, so it's not bad. But other than that, you probably don't want to be doing it.
Well, people think I'll just do it a week or two early, and then I don't have to think about it or worry about it, or I'm going to be busy in a couple
get
weeks.
ahead of it.
But the weather patterns and our climate has changed a little bit, and so just because you used to be able to put your winterizer down on October 15th, you better not do that anymore. Mm-hmm. It seems like we're able to work an extra 2 or 3 or 4 weeks into the fall
Absolutely.
as compared to what we did 30 years ago and 20 years ago, and so you have to adjust your patterns too.
Yep.
Ron, what would be a good temperature to do that rather than doing it by date?
Well, you have to kind of look at more at the 2-week outlook.
Okay.
And, if it's calling for warmer temperatures yet, then just, hold off. Mm-hmm. And I always, and if you're regular listeners to the show, you'll hear more about, what we're watching for the next 10 days and the next 2 weeks than today's weather, because as I work outside and do our planning and transplanting and scheduling of work, I'm more worried about what it's going to do. And if we're doing things here on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, it's more important that the weather is in our favor the following week.
Right.
So, because it doesn't really matter one day, one warm day, an overnight low that doesn't get, that a day isn't bad. It's more of a trend.
Right.
So that's why I like to look at the 10-day outlook and the 14-day outlook. And it really doesn't matter if it's going to be 82 or 84. But it does matter a lot if it's going to be 72 or 92.
Yes.
Because that's what I'll do is I'll look at overnight lows and more of the trend of what I'm seeing, and that the pattern that they're forecasting for 10 days out and 2 weeks out.
Yep.
So it's important to listen to Landscape Smart every week.
Right.
Absolutely, Delores. Or if you didn't catch that week, you can always go onto YouTube. Isn't that not right, Ron? We'll take our quick break, but fill them in on that.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. We have we are taping today's show, so
Yes.
you can watch it on YouTube whenever Cody gets a chance to download it and put it all together. So it'll be available early in the week. So just watch for it and be coming up here real soon.
Welcome back to Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. I am Matt Hinker, and joining me today is Ron Rademann and Master Gardener Delores. Phone lines are open for your questions, 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450, or you can shoot us an email at kfizstudio@gmail.com. And speaking of emails, we've got one here from, looks like Bill. We planted about 8 arborvitaes about 4 to 5 years ago and used the fertilizer packet. Is it time to replace them, and do we need to take the old packets out? Thank you, Bill.
Well, the old packets that are there would be very difficult to get out because you'd definitely do more damage to the plant than benefit by trying to get those packets out of there. But I think what Bill is talking about are the NutriPack fertilizer packets, which are my personal favorite choice. Because as everyone knows, I'm kind of a lazy gardener. And what I like about the fertilizer packets is they last for 4 or 5 years. And so if it's a little bit more work to install them than the spikes or sprinkling a little granular on the ground. But if you take your tiling spade and make a slit and drop those packets in, get them down about a foot, 10 inches or a foot down. And once you do that, you're good for the next 4 or 5 years. Now, with that being said, I typically like to bridge that gap just a little bit and don't wait the full 4 years. Even though those packets are helping or beneficial, I'll usually do it every other year or something along those lines, because that way I always kind of have some packets finishing up and some kind of kicking into gear.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But the packets work out so well because they have it's a plastic package, but it's got, which doesn't break down, but there's tiny holes punctured into those packets, and so what happens is the water gets in, the fertilizer emulsifies and comes out whenever it's wet enough and whenever you're watering, and you're watering deep enough to activate those packets.
Yep.
So if you go away for a month in the summer and you don't water and it isn't raining and it's hot, the fertilizer just stays in the packet. And you don't have anything to worry about because you're not fertilizing at the wrong time under the wrong conditions.
Oh.
But on the other hand, if you are around and you're watering once a week or twice a month even, you're keeping that plant in good health by watering it, and the fertilizer is active at that point in time. So you don't necessarily have to use your water soluble fertilizers, any other fertilizer, because you're activating the fertilizer that you've put in there. And so it works out. And it's the other reason I like them over spikes, and spikes are better than just sprinkling 10-10-10 on the ground, because that doesn't really get soaked down or get down to where it really needs to be. So the spikes are at least good if you can drive those in far enough and deep enough. And the only problem with the spikes is if you do get kind of back-to-back rain and then you don't get rain for a couple weeks, they're going to still kind of be working. And the other thing is spikes generally work for about a year, maybe a little into the second year, but they don't last quite as long as the packets. So the spikes are easier to do, but you have to do it more often. So if you have to do it, if you're putting spikes in every year for 4 years, that sounds like a lot more work than putting a packet in that's going to last 4 years. So
When is the best time to put those packets?
You beat me
Spring or fall?
Beat me to it.
Well, and that's the best part about the packets also. And
Doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter because you could literally do them today. And if you're not, if the soil is dry, so what? The fertilizer just stays right in the packet, and then it's activated when we start getting moisture, when you start irrigating. But it's a slow release. It's not, you're not going to...
right, you're not just flooding the plant with...
Right. When you put these packets in, it's more for the general good health of the plant, not like you're going to just watch it grow type of, like water soluble. And we talk about, the water soluble fertilizers to kind of kickstart plants that are struggling a little bit. And there you're mixing a granular fertilizer or a liquid fertilizer up in water and pouring it on, and it'll give it an immediate effect, an immediate jolt, where these packets that is not the purpose of them. So, when we transplant plants for trees and things for customers, we like to use those packets because, again, it's kind of simple and easy, and you don't get yourself in any trouble. And a lot of times, you can, if you try to do too much, you can get yourself in way more trouble than if you just kind of play it safe, because then it doesn't really, and with these packets, it doesn't really matter if it's raining or not. If it is and you're watering, then you're fertilizing, and if not, the fertilizer just sits there. And that's why they last for 4 or 5 years, because they aren't being activated at all times.
So you would recommend to Bill then to put new packets in? Yeah,
and kind of keep in mind now when you're putting packets in, the plants have grown, so move the packets out a little bit. If you're doing, I'm assuming these might be in the 10-foot range by now. If he planted these 4 years ago, and they were, let's say they were 4 or 5 feet tall at the time, they probably could be close to or around 10 feet. So, you're going to want to put these new packets out now, maybe 2 feet out on each side, 4 foot across, in a circle, at least 2 feet out from the center of the plant.
Okay.
Because you want to be out there and force those, make the roots want to grow towards them, not grow back into them. So you want to be out far enough. So when you planted them, you probably put the packets in maybe 12 inches off center, 15 inches, and that's going to be one solid mass of roots in there by now. So that's why you couldn't really get the packets out of there. So you want to go out, now more 2 feet, 28 inches out from the centers, and fertilize in a circle pattern out that way.
What type of, I'm trying to find the word, like collection of plants? Let me ask you, I made a direct thing. I have my maple I'm trying to adorn with other plants around it. Would you recommend packets in somewhere like in there? Or no? Right now, I use spikes this year. Things are thriving there, but nothing's growing as fast as I would like. Things aren't filling out as much. Everything's healthy, but it's just not. I know a part of that's because there's a very well established old, probably 100-year plus maple.
Well, another, if you're planting, perennials or shrubs underneath maples, you're fighting there's a couple problems.
Shade.
It's dense shade, and yet there are perennials and shrubs that prefer shade, quite frankly, and need shade to thrive. But the other problem is the tree is sucking up a lot of the moisture before it even gets a chance, and it's also, there's a lot of competition of the roots from the tree. There's more roots around there than soil in a lot of cases.
I've been trying to add soil actually or don't do that.
Well, don't put any soil on top of a tree's root system. Never do that.
Oh, I don't put it on the tree. I haven't been putting it directly on the tree's root system, but it's far enough. It's kind of, I guess maybe I have to show you a picture, but if I'm doing it, I haven't only done it once, so I will not repeat. I have put a lot of mulch down since then.
Maple roots are near the surface.
Yes.
And that's why you have such competition with, say, your hostas
Yeah.
and those roots of the maple. And now you cover it up with soil and mulch, and you're pretty much suffocating the tree.
Yeah, you have to leave those roots exposed. Everybody thinks, well, I should probably cover those roots up for the health of the tree, and you're actually doing more harm than good. Go ahead and sprinkle an inch of bark mulch on top of those roots, and that makes you feel better and look good. But, you know, those surface roots need to be kept as surface roots.
Gotcha.
The maples will just continue to grow roots up towards the surface, and they'll actually do more. You'll create more of a problem.
Gotcha.
If you try to cover those roots up, because they'll try to get back to the surface and get back above. And
Right.
maples typically are some of the worst ones. And if you start covering those roots up, you'll start encouraging girdling roots and
Right.
roots up that are going to end up doing the tree more harm than good. So
Last year I had resurrection lilies about 4 feet from a maple tree, and only 3 came up. So I said, okay, I know it's a lot of competition. I better dig them up.
Gotcha.
100 bulbs is what I dug up.
Wow.
That's how much the maple kind of cobwebbed over the roots, over the bulbs.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's best to take all those plants you have under the maple. I would move them out a little bit.
They're pretty moved out for the most part. There's
I'm
a couple
saying-
hostas that are pretty close to it, so maybe I could move them. But
Like 5 feet. And
yeah, about that. Maybe a little less, probably about 4.
yeah.
But I'll tell you what, we'll get into this. Looks like we have a caller, so we have to take our last break right now. So we'll do that. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company.
And yes, you can still get a delivery from Rademann's, 920-922-7612 if you want to work on this hot weekend, this upcoming week. Otherwise, stop on out and say hi to the crew out there just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac and just east on County B by a quarter mile.
Hello? You with me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I
you're
was just listening to Ron talk, and I didn't hear you say anything.
No, it's okay. We're on break right now, but then I will bring you on when we come out of break and you can ask your question, okay?
Sounds good, thanks.
You're very welcome. All right, welcome back to the final segment of Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. We don't have a lot of time, but we do have a caller, so let's go ahead and turn right to the phone lines. You are on with Delores and Ron on Landscape Smart. Go ahead with your name and question.
No, and thank you very much. I've just enjoyed listening to the three of you chit-chat. I hated to interrupt.
Oh, no, not a problem.
Veronica plant. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but I've had them for a number of years. I've had a couple and then got some more. But at this time of the year, and even a little bit earlier, some of the stalks not only brown out but die out. And I have dug up and replanted in another place, put in new ones, and I'm just wondering if this just doesn't seem par for the course.
Pretty much. I would just, if you've got brown stems, I would trim them out so that the plant doesn't keep trying to send nutrients up to this stem. And then you'll get other new growth.
Well, and I do. It's just, I mean, they're just wonderful, and they're the biggest bumblebee attractor that I've ever had in with all my flowers. But and I take those stems and pitch them in the garbage can instead of putting them in a compost pile, because I keep thinking, well, is there something that's infecting the root system? They do come back every year. They do start to look good, but and I have thinned out, but maybe not enough.
It sounds like maybe you might be better off just cleaning them up a little bit
Right.
better because sometimes if, and I'm not really familiar with Veronica specifically, but there's just a lot, if plants are so full, especially in a year like this year, where there was a lot of early new growth, and then it was pretty wet, and you might have had some fungus going on in there, visible or invisible, and so just by cleaning them up, thinning them out, you get a little more sun in there, you get a little more air circulation.
I had the same thing with salvias this year, that I had to trim them out, and if you trimmed out the things that were fading, the plants just look excellent now. So yeah, if you see something that's just too crowded, maybe the stems are crossing and killing each other.
Yeah.
It's so
similar issues with my rose bush.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and and this year was a little bit different than most years.
Agreed.
Everything leafed out, started
Early.
growing 2 or 3 weeks earlier.
Well, like a tropical jungle, the way everything.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So so we had to kind of do some adjustments to our gardens this year in different plants, different things, because it wasn't a typical. Our growing season is more than likely could be an extra 3, 4, 5 weeks longer this year if we would end up having a late frost, and so there's you take advantage of it and enjoy it, I guess.
Oh,
but
yeah, very much so. Another question too. We have to have some new piping put in from the house for the plumbing, and there is just a small section, I would say no wider than 3 feet by maybe 4 feet, that I have got heart. What's heart? What's a perennial that's heart? I can't think of it. Anyway.
Bleeding heart?
Yes, bleeding heart, thank you. And some bulbs. I'm not even going to try this mum plant that I've got, but there were several others in there that I need to dig up if I want to save. Now, whether or not I will put them, because I'm struggling with where's a good spot, if I will make that permanent or not. But I am a little bit nervous about doing that with this week coming up. I mean, it's going to be a shock to them to begin with. Is there anything that I can do that's going to help them, other than maybe shade? When these really, other than the bulbs, they do require shade. So
Water.
Well, the bulbs, I would dig them up and maybe put them in the garage where it's cooler until you're maybe, until the work is done, and then get them back in the ground. And the bleeding heart, they kind of die back, so I'm really not sure. I would have to research that to see what you could do with that root. Maybe same thing, put it in a pot, water it well, and get it out of the weather if it's going to be this hot.
Okay.
If you can,
Oh my gosh, see, sorry for interrupting. I never thought of that, the pot. I was thinking, where am I going to dig a hole? And everything's growing right now, and even if I don't want them in the future, I don't want to start cutting up and digging up things that look so good right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can put them in a pot, and then you can, water them, move them into a shade, move them into the garage where it's cooler. That would be the best way to do it.
Yeah. Thank you for the call. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, too.
Bye now.
So everybody, if you tuned in late, you can watch us, re-listen to us on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Or if you missed last week's, you can still listen to that. So otherwise, Rademann's open until noon today, Monday through Friday till 4:30. Stop on out or give us a call, 922-7612, and we're just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac and then east on County B off of Highway 41.
Excellent, Ron. Delores, thank you so much, as always.
you.